on the situation in Gaza. We'll get you updates as we're able to. We have for you here on Live Impact News, though, in the meantime, a new discussion closer to home here. We are going to join now with our sports reporter, Danielle Stein, who has been for the last several days covering Panthers training camp for us. A soggy day today? Probably an understatement.
Soggy, to say the least.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was the Sox definitely got the brunt of it today.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how did that play in with what sort of activities were able to go off today?
They were business as usual, which I think is the most interesting thing because they really want to emulate that. It can rain, obviously, during an NFL game. They're not going to stop it for just rainy conditions. We even just saw on FanFest to start that one. It was raining, not to this level, but they really had everyone trying to go full out as much as possible without pads again. The biggest discrepancy, I would say, was the gloves or lack thereof gloves. A lot of the players opting not to wear gloves. And Dave Canales even talked about that afterwards, saying that sometimes the gloves actually make it worse. Like when he was working in Seattle, he would say when it's a light drizzle, the gloves would help. But when it was raining to the extent where it was today, it does inhibit your ability to catch. So a lot of the guys were challenged by having to do bare hand catches. And yeah, we did see a lot of drops out there. We saw some picks. We saw some plays that are, quote, sloppy, which is what is maybe expected when it's the first time exposed to rain during this preseason, but it did show the team some things that they should be working on, especially as they're going to be welcoming another NFL team tomorrow.
That is some really interesting insights about the gloves and the inclement weather. But I guess, to your point about how they were saying, we're gonna play in the conditions that we might have to play actual games in. I mean, I feel like that was the dialogue when we were dealing with the excruciatingly hot temperatures and the fact that, hey, we might have to play in some really hot temps and we need to be, conditioned to whatever the weather might toss our way.
We were saying and kind of joking, we've seen the two extremes. We've seen, these temperatures in the hundreds, and then we've seen days like this. We haven't had just a nice, really 85, sunny, overcast kind of day just yet, but that's, I guess, what summertime in the Carolinas is going to look like. But it is true because they're obviously going to be on the road for parts of the time. First week, they're going to Jacksonville, and we all know that the storms definitely go to Florida just as much as they do here in the Charlotte area, too. So as they're traveling, they could be seeing any sort of element. So it's good to be as prepped as possible.
Yeah, indeed. So y'all have been really great about giving us some really interesting storylines every single day. By the way, we're going to address the situation behind you over your shoulder in just a second. I did not forget. I did not forget this part of the conversation. So yeah, we're going to get back to that shortly. But I guess what sort of storylines are you watching for us today, and how will we see that popping up in your reports to come here on the evening news?
Yeah, the big story of the day was Lathan Ransom. He was one of the rookies that they drafted this year out of Ohio State, that team that won the national championship this year. He's a safety, and he's been great all preseason, but today was a really big breakout day for him. He had a sack. He had an interception in the end zone. He was all over it. And I think the big thing that Dave Canales said in talking about him was that focus, that, it's raining, guys can be distracted, but he was even like the 8th play, and he's still all in, all focused. He's a funny guy. He was dancing. He was doing all these handshakes, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later on tonight. But he was someone who really stood out today. So I talked to him afterwards one-on-one, and we had a lot of really good conversations and conversation points. And yeah, one of them was about how he was able to really step up on a day like today when the conditions weren't great. And for him, it was pretty interesting too. He's from the Tucson area, so he never grew up playing in rain. He never really saw rain at all growing up in the desert. Of course, playing at Ohio State he did, but this is still kind of new for him to play, and he was excellent out there today.
That's really great to hear. Now, I mean, the other thing that we've been talking a lot here, on the Panthers front, the fact that we do have a preseason game coming up on Friday. They'll be playing the Browns. Anything that you're seeing, insight-wise, what are the conversations looking like, looking ahead to that? Anything interesting that you'll be watching out for when that matchup happens?
I mean, the Browns are one of the more exciting and notable teams this offseason just based on their quarterback situation. If you remember back, there were 5 quarterbacks in their room, which is pretty hefty, including drafting 2 of them in Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. Well, now they're down to 3 because 2 of them already are injured, with Gabriel as well as Kenny Pickett both dealing with injuries right now. So they actually had to bring in more quarterbacks to help fill out that room even further. I think everyone wants to see what Shedeur is going to look like. That's the big story, is if he's able to translate at the NFL level like he and of course his father and a lot of his teammates had to say. It'll be fun to see him and Jimmy Horn Jr., former Colorado teammates, reuniting here tomorrow. I'm sure everyone's going to be watching them. And no, the Browns are definitely a fun team. People think that they could be, pretty solid based on a lot of their position groups, but it's going to be that quarterback that everyone is going to want to be seeing how that shapes out.
Yeah. I mean, and you brought up the Shedeur Sanders, thread, if you will. I mean, that's always going to draw, I think, headlines and interest. And I thought it was really interesting. I believe it was Nick Carboni who brought us this yesterday, but the fact that he was asked about, whether his dad might show up to some of, some of his practices or whatnot, and he was like, I don't want him to come because I don't want him to see me like this at this point. He basically wants to debut himself in his absolute, glory, his
Sure.
apex, if you will, and not have to have his dad see him before that point.
And he's had some excellent showing so far this preseason. Of course, they're all getting a lot of different reps, but there was one day I think I saw he went, 9 for 10 with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. So Shedeur is definitely showing what he can do at the Browns camp. It'll be interesting though to see what they end up deciding in direction they go with.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. I want to get back to the situation behind you. I feel like this is super timely because it is Clear the Shelters right now because it's in August. We officially have reached Clear the Shelters season, where we are trying to get as many unhoused pups and kitties and pets into forever homes. And you are adding to the solutions here. So tell us about your new buddy.
Okay, let me see if I can position because he's taking a little snooze. But here he is, right next to me. So the situation, yes, he is, first of all, amazing. But my friends who I live in the same apartment building as were fostering him. His name is Ren. And I was also considering fostering as well because I knew I've wanted a dog. I wanted to experience it. But I got to know Mr. Wren over here, and it just seemed like a perfect match. I've always wanted a dog, and I love a brindle dog too, and he's gorgeous. He's 1. And it's part of Clear the Shelters, which is awesome that our station is super involved with that too. So we went to the Humane Society of Charlotte just yesterday, and he's officially mine.
That's fantastic. And I love that also, just kind of knowing the backstory that you shared with viewers here on WCNC Plus, but I've had the pleasure of speaking with you kind of offline about, you and I have talked about, am I ready? Oh, maybe I might, look into fostering just to kind of like get my, dip my toe in the water, if you will. But you took the full-on plunge, and I love to see that. And he is such a cutie. Oh my goodness.
He's adorable. I will say I felt ready. I had a couple opportunities before where I could have done it, but I knew I wanted to make sure the dog would be in the best position possible to live a happy, healthy life. And we all felt ready here, and we found an amazing pup, and he's literally just a doll. He's just snuggling right here. And
oh my.
He's so sweet. And he's petite. He's about 40 pounds, and that's just him about full size as well.
That is really, like, I think perfection, although I do love a really big dog and I do love a little. I've had kind of a range over my whole life.
The mediums too, though.
Yeah, the mediums are great. And
I will say, though, we are still workshopping some names, so if anyone has good name suggestions, we're open to ideas over here.
Okay. I'll do some pondering. I don't want to just like throw out any name to you. I want to make sure it's a good fit. Yeah. Yeah,
for
but
sure.
I love a brindle too. We've got a brindle as well. He's a Mudapalooza, but he's like a really handsome man. So
Yes,
I
I've
love
seen
yours too.
pictures.
All right. Anything you want to leave us with before we wrap things up here? Sports or
No.
Clear the Shelters related?
Both are super important. But no, it was an interesting day. I think everyone it was just interesting to, I guess, see how everyone responded to the rain. Some people, like I was mentioning, Lathan, seemed to be having an absolute ball out there. Some people less than. So I think those are kind of character shaping days for players when they get out there and have to face a new kind of challenge. And the ones that really take things head on and also deliver really well in those moments, I think those are people that you can kind of count on that are going to be shining come the actual start of the season.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm excited. We're getting ever so close to the start of things. As we mentioned, preseason, Panthers, Browns, Friday at
Friday
7
night.
o'clock. So,
Yeah.
yeah, lots of folks will be interested to see what comes of that matchup. Danielle, thank you so much. And
Thank you. Appreciate it.
farewell for now. Ren to be determined
He's
later.
still Ren for now.
Ren for now. All right.
Yes.
Take care, y'all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for joining us.